Hello, welcome to the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame induction ceremony posthumously honoring Gordon A. Bubolz. I'm Patty Dreyer. I am president of the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Foundation, and I'll be your MC today. We have pre-recorded some parts of this event, and we'll also host a live interview with our inductee's daughter as a special feature. I'm located in Stevens Point, the heart of Wisconsin, at the Schmeeckley Reserve Visitor Center on the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point campus. We're pleased to have you join us today and are grateful for the technology and the computer technologists that bring us together. Our goal through this ceremony today is to give you a chance to get to know Gordon Bubolz personally, through the memories shared by his daughter and through some of his own words as published in his book, Once Upon a Time. We will explore the father he was, we'll delve into his professional activities, and try to get to the heart of the makings of this great conservation champion. After this induction ceremony today, I think you'll agree, Gordon Bubolz was a selfless, tireless servant who strived above all to leave Wisconsin better for having lived his own life here. One of his greatest passions was illustrated by his own words, quote, "It is my fervent hope that generations after me will thrill to the sights and sounds of nature," unquote. And if I could talk to Gordon today, I would tell him that yes, we do, on lands that you have helped to set aside in Wisconsin for our benefit. Let's get started by thanking our event sponsors for making this program possible today. The gold sponsors include Yeager Mellerop Family Charitable Trust and Secura Insurance Companies. Our silver sponsors include Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region, Tom Dawson, a donation in recognition of Wisconsin's youth conservation leaders, Gathering Waters, Northeast Wisconsin Land Trust, Jerry and Marilyn Knuth via Thrivent Choice, and Wisconsin Society for Ornithology. The bronze sponsors today include Julia M. Boltz, Stephen Bourne, DeWitt Law Firm, Christine Euclid and Doug Steege, Joanne M. and Richard C. Hemp, Peter McKeever, Peter A. and Sharon A. Peshek, Sierra Club Wisconsin Chapter, Wildlife Society Wisconsin Chapter, and the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation. In-kind contributions come from the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. Let me share with you how this event will flow today. We'll feature two distinguished speakers sharing the highlights of Gordon's life and career, and a video montage of the lands that Gordon helped to preserve for public access and nature education in Wisconsin. We will present Gordon's family with his official recognition from the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Foundation and an official legislative citation from the state of Wisconsin. Then I'll conduct a live interview with Gordon's daughter, Amelia Rugland, Millie, and then this will give you a chance, I think, to hear her personally share her father's story and get to know him better. We will close the event with Gordon's video montage from the opening of the ceremony. We knew you would want to watch it again, and we'll also turn on the live chat feature at that time, so attendees at this induction ceremony today may share thoughts and memories and gratitude with the Bubolz family. This is our way to hold a reception line, so to speak, so that you can offer your personal congratulations We'll get all those thoughts recorded and sent in a written document to Gordon's family so they won't miss any of those special memories and thoughts that you share. Are you ready? Well, let's get started by sharing some background on the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame and the induction process.
The Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Foundation was created in 1984 to encourage the growth and practice of a conservation ethic as a legacy for the people of Wisconsin. The Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame is a nonprofit organization guided by a board of directors. Voting member organizations represent more than 30 conservation organizations from around Wisconsin. Each year, the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame inducts up to 3 people into the Hall of Fame. To date, there are over 100 inductees who have been honored. You can learn about each of these conservation champions on the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame website or by visiting the Hall of Fame Gallery. The Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Gallery of Inductees is located in beautiful Schmeeckley Reserve, which is a natural area on the campus of the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, with 5 miles of nature trails and wildlife viewing opportunities. Inside the Schmeeckley Reserve Visitor Center, guests can view engraved wooden plaques about inductees, with quotes highlighting their contributions. A touchscreen computer gives visitors a chance to connect with Wisconsin's conservation heritage as they browse the stories and learn about the achievements of each inductee. Any person or organization can nominate someone for induction into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. Nominees have an array of environmental and conservation-related backgrounds and varying types of education and experience. From writers to artists, from educators to policymakers, from researchers to managers, Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame heroes come from all backgrounds and walks of life. Based on standards and criteria set by the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Board of Directors, all inductees must have significant ties to Wisconsin, and their contributions must have wide-reaching impact, affecting a range of natural resources. Each summer, a 5-member Board of Governors reviews nominations. The highly esteemed governors are an independent body and have in-depth knowledge of Wisconsin's conservation history. The governors select 5 nominations to forward to the Board of Directors and voting member organizations for their consideration. The board members and organization representatives select the following year's inductees from that list of finalists at their annual fall meeting. While voting membership in the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame is only open to organizational members of the foundation, individuals may participate in the mission by providing annual support as affiliate members. The financial support of member organizations and affiliate members allows the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame to celebrate, advance, and share Wisconsin's conservation legacy as it hosts induction ceremonies and maintains inductee archives. We invite you to learn more about the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame and Wisconsin's conservation heritage by visiting our website at wchf.org.
Let me introduce you to our first speaker today, David Horst. David is a nature writer and part-time environmental grant manager at the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region in Appleton, and he took a special interest in Gordon Bubolz's nomination and helped to see it through.
Hello, I'm Dave Horst, and I nominated Gordon Bubolz for the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame with the assistance of his daughter, Millie Rugland, and son, John Bubolz. I've been a nature writer here in the Fox Valley for off and on for a lot of years. And currently I work for the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region in Appleton, doing environmental grant making. I didn't work for Gordon. I wasn't friends with Gordon. In fact, I never met Gordon. I just knew of him as a business leader in the Fox Valley, as president and CEO of what is now Secura Insurance. It was the power of his story that led me to make the nomination. Heard about Gordon's involvement in land acquisitions for one natural area after another, and then eventually came upon a joint resolution that the Wisconsin legislature passed, giving him credit for playing a key role in the acquisition of 10 natural areas, including 4 nature centers, 3 wildlife areas, 2 county parks, and High Cliff State Park. I wrote an article for Wisconsin Natural Resources magazine about what I privately refer to as the Bubolz 10. My wife and I were taking a hike up at the Schmeeckley Reserve by UW Stevens Point, and we came upon the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame display. I, of course, went right to the bees to see if what they had on Gordon Bubolz. It turned out he wasn't listed. Today, that oversight is being corrected. Let me briefly tell you about the Bubolz 10. Gordon would have called the 10 properties just a good start. He told Millie he wanted to see a nature center in each of the 72 counties in Wisconsin. The nature centers he helped to establish are the Gordon Bubolz Nature Preserve, just north of Appleton, Fallen Timbers Nature Center in Seymour, Mosquito Hill Nature Center in New London, and Woodland Dunes Nature Center in Manitowoc. Gordon set up a nonprofit called Natural Areas Preservation, Inc., or NAPI, to do these land acquisitions. A lot of Fox Valley residents today only know Gordon Bubolz as the guy the nature preserve is named after. Even that didn't come easy. When the board of NAPI paid $33,000 for the 488 acres of cedar swamp for the preserve, there was wide agreement that it should be named for Gordon, but they also knew he wouldn't accept it. So the members of NAPI's board connived to vote him out as chairman and make him leave the room. They gave him the honor and then allowed Gordon back in and reinstated him as chairman. I had the pleasure of a conversation with Bernie Brashad, the first naturalist at Woodland Dunes, shortly before his passing. He described how Gordon worked to acquire the 1,200 acres for the Nature Center through what Bernie called kitchen table deals. They would meet with the farmers who owned the land at their homes. They would explain their purpose. There was no dickering. They would give the farmer his asking price unless it was truly outrageous. Gordon figured it was worth paying a little more now rather than getting the project started and having to pay a lot more then. Continuing down the list, we have Hayman Falls County Park in a beautiful section of Shawano County, and Mount Morris Hills County Park in Waushara County, a place with tremendous views. Then the wildlife areas are Wauhawk Creek Nature Preserve near Omro, Hobbs Woods Nature Area south of Fond du Lac, and Muckwa Wildlife Area in New London. This is one of the places people go in the spring to watch sturgeon spawn. I have to say my favorite is Hayman Falls. You can walk along this series of rapids and lose yourself in it. Shawano County Board initially objected to accepting this gift. 54 acres along the Embarrass River that they were being given by the Wisconsin Electric Power Company. They were concerned about the liability of owning a waterfall. So Gordon went back to the utility and said, how about you throw in some cash to cover insuring the liability? They agreed, and the county board went along with the deal. After all, he was an insurance executive. High Cliff State Park was the top prize, clearly, and another example of Gordon using his business skills. NAPI was working with a local group in the mid-1950s and was trying to get the state to buy 280 acres of limestone cliffs for $245,000. State officials said they didn't have the money, even though NAPI was willing to put up $27,000. Gordon argued that the High Cliff area was geologically part of the northern Kettle Moraine, and there was a reserve fund to pay for Kettle Moraine acquisitions. His argument won the day. The money was used to buy the land, and a state park was born. now it is annually always in the top 10 in number of visitors. You'll hear a lot today about Gordon being a man of contrasts, and that's very true. He served 8.5 years in the Wisconsin State Senate as a Republican, long before most of these land acquisitions. He was a conservative, yet he was involved in early legislation that led to the creation of DNR, water quality standards, and the creation of regional planning commissions based not on geographic boundaries, but on watersheds. Despite being a leading businessman in the Fox Valley, he was very vocal in his opposition to paper mills dumping pollution into the Fox River. Another lesson Gordon took from business was that you can't accomplish much if you disregard half the people in the room. Sure, it was another time, but Gordon had no hesitation about crossing party lines to find his friends. Gordon teamed up with a very liberal Gaylord Nelson in supporting one of Wisconsin's earliest pieces of legislation concerning water quality. Gordon, Gaylord Nelson, and Republican Warren Knowles socialized often, sometimes debating the issues of the day, often with Millie there listening in. Gordon was honored in 1990 with the joint resolution I mentioned earlier, but there was a long list of honors. He received the State Soil and Water Conservation District Award in 1968. He was named Wisconsin Conservationist of the Year in 1977 and honored for his conservation work by the UW College of Agriculture and Life Sciences in 1978. He has a scholarship named for him at the UW Stevens Point College of Natural Resources. Gordon was nominated by his friend, then US Senator Gaylord Nelson, for the National Wildlife Federation Conservationist of the Year in 1976. When Gaylord Nelson nominates you, you're going to win. I believe these qualifications clearly add up to Gordon Bubolz being a worthy addition to the incredible list of people who have contributed greatly to conservation in Wisconsin and globally. I want to thank the Board of Governors for selecting Gordon for consideration and all of the representatives of the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame's member organizations who voted for Gordon Bubolz to be inducted. This is a long overdue honor for a dedicated conservationist who has enriched our state and reminds us that what we can accomplish when we leave partisanship behind and work together to protect and preserve the amazing gifts of nature Wisconsin has been given. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dave. We're thrilled to share a video montage of the Bubolz 10 as you coined it in your speech. Since a picture is worth 1,000 words, we thought these images would do a fine job of illustrating the land preservation efforts of Gordon Bubolz. Now I'd like to introduce you to our second speaker today to explain more about Gordon Bubolz's legacy. Randy Tuma is the executive director of the Bubolz Nature Preserve in Appleton, Wisconsin. Bubolz Nature Preserve is one of the 4 nature centers that Gordon helped to establish.
Thank you, Patty. As executive director of the Bubolz Nature Preserve, it's my pleasure to oversee the organization that Gordon founded. We have a history dating back to 1971, when Gordon, along with a nonprofit he would soon found, Natural Areas Preservation, set aside this land and preserved it for our community. Originally, it was farm fields, 488 acres worth, that were set aside for the preserve, and by the mid-'80s grew into 775 acres of pristine land set aside for us to explore, recreate, and learn from. The Bubolz Nature Preserve's history is deep and rich with environmental education and outdoor recreation. We have had that as the center of our mission for some time now, since our inception. We see over 80,000 visitors come here to the preserve. Many are school-age children participating in our programs. Nearly 14,000 pre-pandemic had participated in programs. We're looking to get back to that number, if not more, rather soon here. And many more have experienced the preserve, whether out on the trails, here in our buildings. We have a very diverse property, very unique, multiple habitats here on site. It's what makes us set apart from some of the natural areas you might see otherwise. We are set in the center of Outagamie County here, right in the middle of Wisconsin's tension zone. Because of that, we see flora and fauna from both the north and south parts of the state. That makes a very diverse and rich classroom for us to teach from. Our students really enjoy it. Teachers really enjoy the experience. This would not be here if not for Gordon and his work. As you heard from Dave, Gordon had set aside 10 properties here in Northeast Wisconsin, making this area very rich with experiences. From that, we formed a group called NUNA, which is the Northeast Wisconsin Naturalists Association. And that is a number of administrators and professionals that get together on a biannual basis and talk about how we can forward that conservation ethic that Gordon had started here in this region. And that's for the present and for the future generations to enjoy as well. Other centers that you've heard about, Fallen Timbers, Mosquito Hill, Woodland Dunes, even High Cliff State Park, all of their staff participate in NUNA. And we love to share our adventures in the field here, what we've seen, what we've heard, how we can improve on some of the experiences for our community. And again, going all back to Gordon's visionary work and what he's done here in Northeast Wisconsin. The impact that is provided is also very outstretched. You'll have people in the community coming up to you and saying, I visited the Bubolz Nature Preserve when I was young, and it instilled something in me. And now I bring my kids out there and they're having a blast as well. I've seen a number of people forward their careers from their start here at the preserve, and whether that's as a wildlife biologist, a conservation officer, somebody in fisheries, a forester, a soil technician. We've seen all kinds of people's love for nature and passion for the outdoors born here at the preserve and other places that Gordon and Natural Areas Preservation set aside here in Northeast Wisconsin. All of that work was very visionary and done at a time when not everybody was thinking about it. So they were really forward thinkers for their time and did a lot here in our region in Northeast Wisconsin. I'd like to first of all congratulate all of the nominees today and thank the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame for inducting these wonderful people who have done so much for the outdoors. Thank you so much.
On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Foundation, we officially recognize Gordon A. Bubolz as being inducted into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. The quote on the plaque, which will be posted on our website, reads, "That which we do for ourselves dies with us. That which we do for others lives on." And that's a quote by Gordon A. Bubolz. Congratulations to the family of Gordon Bubolz. Gordon is now a member of this extraordinary group of conservation heroes in Wisconsin. We will now hear remarks from State Representative Katrina Shanklin, who will share a State of Wisconsin recognition with us all.
Hi, I'm State Representative Katrina Shanklin with a citation of commendation from the state of Wisconsin. Know you by these presents. Whereas Gordon Bubolz was a conservative businessman, a politician, and a dedicated conservationist and volunteer who developed a love of nature at a young age and devoted his life to protecting and preserving Wisconsin's cherished waters and lands. And whereas Gordon's father founded the Farmers Home Mutual Hail, Tornado, and Cyclone Insurance Company of Seymour, Wisconsin, now known as Secura, in 1900, and Gordon succeeded his father as chief executive of the company after many years as operations head. And whereas Gordon was a graduate of Lawrence University and the University of Wisconsin Law School, and he studied business and insurance at various other institutions, also serving as a Republican state senator from 1945 to 1953, championing the creation of the Department of Natural Resources, water and air pollution control regulations, and other environmental policies while battling for welfare reform and limited spending in the legislature. And whereas in the legislature he served on the State Conservation Commission, chaired the Advisory Council of the Department of Resource Development, served on the legislature's Joint Water Resource Committee, co-authored legislation to implement provisions of the Federal Water Pollution Control Act of 1948 in Wisconsin, chaired what is now known as the East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, and was an outspoken advocate for regulating industrial pollution of the Fox River. And whereas in 1974, Gordon established and led National Areas Preservation, Inc., a nonprofit dedicated to identifying and preserving natural areas of ecological significance and educating the public on the vitality of conservation. And a 1990 Senate joint resolution credits him as a key fundraiser and organizer in the acquisition of 4 nature centers, 3 wildlife areas, 2 county parks, and High Cliff State Park, collectively about 4,600 acres, with one of those 4 nature centers later being named the Gordon A. Bubolz Nature Preserve. And whereas he received Conservationist of the Year honors from the National Wildlife Federation and its Wisconsin affiliate, was selected as Conservation Pioneer by the UW Department of Agriculture, and received a special citation from the Wisconsin legislature for his achievements. And most recently, he has been named a 2022 inductee to the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. Now, therefore, the members of the Wisconsin State Legislature, on the motion of Representative Katrina Shankland, do hereby honor Gordon Bubolz for his outstanding service and commitment to conservation.
We are now live with the ceremony. So happy to have you here today. We appreciate you being with us. We congratulate the Gordon Bubolz family again and wish he was here to receive this honor, but we know he's close at heart on this special day. Let us hear from this from Gordon's only daughter, Amelia Millie Rugland. Please join us, Millie.
Okay, I'm here. I'm here in my home overlooking the Fox River.
Yes, and I understand that's a place where it all began. Didn't you live across the river when you were a child?
Yes, I did. I lived almost directly across the river from this home, and it was an inspiration for all of us. The river.
Super cool. Well, listen, I promised everybody that we would have this interview to get to the heart of who Gordon was best we can. That's through the heart of his daughter. And so, Millie, can you tell us about your father's love of nature? Like, what stories did he share about where that love came from?
Well, the one story that was always it was that he learned to love nature when he was a child. He lived on a farm, and there was nature all around, but a very special woodlot that had a marsh and a little pond, and he would go out there and sit and enjoy nature, and it was a special place.
And I remember when you were telling me on the phone when I called, just that lovely story about wetlands and how they're sponges, because he was educated along the way too.
Yes, that's how he became gone from just loving nature to understanding it. Mm-hmm. When he started listening to scientists about what it was, why it was important.
So that's a beautiful segue to this next question about the fact that loving nature is one thing, as we know, and being a conservationist is another. So what do you think drove your father to become a conservationist?
The way I look at it, there were really two things. First, he turned to experts, or they turned to him.
Mm,
University of Wisconsin professors went to the Senate and would talk to anybody who would listen about the need to save nature and protect our waters. And he listened along with others like Gaylord and Warren. And he got sold and he had the means. He knew why it was important. So that gave him a drive. And then he listened to other people who weren't professionals, but were fishermen and hunters, and they were feeling he had all this knowledge and knew why it was important.
Sure, sure. So where do you think the idea of having a nature center in every county came from?
I think it was the way he thought generally. He was a big thinker. He was an optimist. He knew it was important to save these wonderful natural areas for the future generations. So why not have one in every county? So every person, every family could enjoy nature.
It is a bold vision. That just makes me smile. Yep. So did you ever see him celebrate an achievement, say after raising enough money to preserve one of the Bubolz 10?
Well, the one that I was most involved in was High Cliff State Park, because I was a senior in high school when he saved that. And I was involved in fundraising with him, which basically meant opening envelopes. And the envelopes would have $1 or $5 or whatever. And when I wrote thank you letters, and it was a long haul to raise $27,000. And I don't remember the time period, 6 months or a year. And he did it, and he made it happen when that wasn't enough. So he really celebrated, because that was on the fence.
It's wonderful to know that he did give himself just that moment of way to go, Gordon, right? Before he went on to what was the next project, I am sure.
Right.
The kind of man he was, huh? So yeah, and one thing that I learned in taking a look at his nomination file and talking with you and so on, is that faith played a significant role in your father's life. And I'm wondering, I'm pretty sure lots of folks out there wonder, how did you see your father's faith come into play in his environmental efforts over the years?
Well, he was always quoting Bible passages that fit conservation and fit doing good for others. His family was religious. They did Bible study every morning. And so he knew the Bible well. And he was always quoting out of it was God's creation, and we needed to take care of it.
So one of the things that we were able to obtain thanks to you, and this is now on our website for the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Scanned, is the book that Gordon wrote in 1992 called Once Upon a Time. And so I was reading this book. It was a very interesting book to read about Gordon. And one of the things that I reflect on is the fact that it seems to me that Gordon worked handily at the intersections of groups of people. They might have been rural and urban. They might have been farmer and environmentalist. They might have been politician and insurance businessman, or Native American and Wisconsinite. And being effective in bridging these groups together seemed, to me at least, to have been part of Gordon's magic in getting things done. So what do you think? What are some of those factors that led to your father's success?
I think that being able to bridge those divides was key, absolutely key. And it was because it was honest. It wasn't a put on bridging. He really thought of everybody as equal, having value. He always looked for value in the other person.
It shows in his story. Really, for anybody out there who hasn't had a chance to delve into the history here about Gordon and his role and his way, I think you will find the same thing that Millie just hit that nail on the head for us all today. It's really beautiful too, which we'll come to this interview in a few moments. I have another question I think it'll relate nicely to. But I know that your father wore so many different hats. We've noted a number of them already. So what about that balancing act that it took to handle all of those hats, including his family hat? Of course, you were just a little girl at the time when a lot of his major preservation accomplishments had come to be.
I don't know if you remember when you first reached that question with me, I laughed. I said, balancing? He just worked day and night. He worked day and night. And we saw him on Sundays and on holidays and vacations, but he was very good at taking us along with him, like John and I, my brother John. We would go plant seedlings to make wind buffers to prevent soil erosion. I mean, he found ways to be with us, and he was just good at, he just worked hard. That's all. He got it all done.
He put you to work.
Yes, he put
it paid off.
He put everybody to work.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
He authorized everyone in business and conservation and whatever he was doing. He'd find a way for you to work.
Well, that's what happens with bold visions for sure. So your dad was an outspoken advocate for regulating pollution. So tell us about the times and the settings in which Gordon Bubolz began to get involved in leadership related to conservation.
With water regulation, well, it started early when he was in the Senate and they took on the first real water regulation in the state in the late 40s. But then he took on regulation of the fox and others in northeast Wisconsin. And that was not popular because at the time, all the waterways were considered legitimate sewers and nobody thought of them as any other way. And I would sit in our backyard and look at the Fox River and see foam, colored foam going by this high. And it would be pink one day and green the other. But that, people say today, how could that nasty company do that? That was considered okay. And it's just the way it was. And that's because he was an early pioneer, like some of the others in water regulation, pollution regulation.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't know better.
Mm-hmm. Yet. Yep. Times have changed, we're happy to say, for all of this conservation work that's happened. So your dad cleverly started a nonprofit organization that's been referred to in the speeches earlier in this ceremony. It was called Natural Areas Preservation, Inc., and it created essential capacities which supported that preservation effort and also helped to inform or educate the public on the value of conservation. Very cool idea. What do you remember about Natural Areas Preservation, Inc.?
I remember it being very creative. There were land trusts in the East Coast, which is where I lived at the time when he did this. And there weren't any here. So he basically created a land trust system where there would be an organization that was a nonprofit that would buy the land, find somebody to take care of it. And then he just went for it. And he found people who had the same goals. And they worked together and they made it happen.
I think at some point, you and I were talking about this is sort of like the land trust movement before the land trust movement came to Wisconsin.
Right. It was really a precursor to land trusts in the area. So but the thing that I always thought was so amazing was he just sort of thought it up so he could do it. People weren't doing it here then. He just said, oh, I bet we can figure out how to do this. And he did.
It's beautiful, beautiful for sure. So of what conservation related accomplishment, Millie, do you think that your dad would say he was the most proud?
I think that would be very hard for him to
Mhm.
choose one
Mhm.
as the one of which he's more proud. I don't know even if he felt that way, if he could say, make himself say that. But I know the ones he enjoyed the most were the Bubolz Preserve and High Cliff. And I always thought that's because they were right here and he could enjoy them and did. But
Right.
I don't think he could choose. They're all unique.
Yes. And then that's not even to speak about all of his other accomplishments for our state in the regulatory sense and so on either. So one of the things that I learned in Once Upon a Time was about Gordon becoming an honorary member, being named an honorary member of the Menominee tribe in a surprise ceremony. It's really a colorful story as he paints it in the book. And this was the highest honor to be bestowed on a white man. And Gordon was given the name, the man from the Wolf River, by the Menominee. And so I wonder, do you have any recollections about this, about what your father may have said or how he reacted to that extraordinary honor?
It was an extraordinary honor, and he was absolutely thrilled and humbled by it. He had spent a lot of time with the Menominees, and he had grown to be very good friends with them. And he so admired their culture. He thought it was a step above where the rest of us were, because they did see the land as sacred and the animals and the birds, and he just fell in love with that.
Mhm.
So he was honored, and he maintained that friendship.
It's beautiful. He talks about being so excited that that the Menominee tribe was part of his constituency
Yes.
in the state, and how he had helped to break through on some issues that were not being broken through on, let's just say, at the state level before he gave those issues attention for the Menominee people. And so that's beautiful, incredible story. I encourage anybody who wants to take a look and just enjoy that book on the website, along with a lot of other very cool resources that we've been able to gather over time. In that book, Once Upon a Time, on page 55, Gordon writes, when people work together to protect wilderness beauty and environmental quality, they accomplish much more than they would be able to if working alone. So did your father ever talk about working with others, about collaboration, about what did that mean? What did he say about cooperation and collaboration?
It just came so naturally to him. He didn't talk about it in as lofty terms as he wrote about it. He just loved people, and he saw the value in everybody, and he looked beyond their differences because he was good at creating common goals. He was so excited about everything he was doing, whether it's business or conservation. He would rally people around the goal, and it always became, we did this, not I did this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So also in his book, Gordon writes, quote, Wisconsin, through the foresighted conservation efforts of its residents, has greatly enhanced the quality of life for generations to come. I mentioned this to you, Millie, on the phone when we met, about how your father's legacy had intertwined with my own, because when I was in undergraduate school, I was park naturalist at High Cliff State Park, of all places. And it was really part of my life to tell the stories of the park and how wonderful that resource was seen by all of those who visited to learn. And anyway, and the premier resource that was there for all of us to enjoy. And so I'm a beneficiary of Gordon's work. Personally, I am. I know many, many other people are out there as well. Their lives have also been enhanced immeasurably. What's been the response that you've heard or seen in the Fox Valley or anywhere else related to your father's induction into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame?
I have been surprised at the great interest in it. You know, he died in 1990. And, you know, so I thought, well, that's a long time ago. Well, people even notice, but people have come out of the woodwork to congratulate us and look for facts and more stories. And it's been very rewarding. And I think part of that is because it underscores how important conservation is and how it was overlooked and people worked hard and people can make a difference. And that's what you're trying to do, and the rest of the Hall of Fame and all the other conservation organizations. So I think that's the interest. It's,
I understand that Secura's watching, has got this on a screen for folks to be watching in their headquarters, right? And then also the community foundation for the Fox Valley, so folks they can share in the celebration as they jointly watch this ceremony today. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So another quote from your father is, "To succeed, a natural resources conservation and development program cannot be just another arm of the government. It must be an instrument for participation and expression of the people's needs, their wills, and their human aspirations." How has your father's values and how has his style of accomplishing goals influenced you, Millie? How does his legacy live through you today and your family today?
well, as to the family, we all love nature, and many of us have been involved in preserving nature, enhancing the work of nature preserves. I've been in land trusts, started a land trust, on the board of land trust in Connecticut for about 20 years, been 20 years in a land trust here, Northeast Wisconsin Land Trust. Just been a wonderful opportunity. And it's enriched our lives. I highly recommend it for anybody listening. You will love being in conservation.
So if your father was here right now, Millie, what would he say about his induction into the Hall of Fame?
Wow. I think he would say, I am so honored and I am so humbled, and keep up the good work. And by the way, go out and support conservation groups. That's what I think he'd say. He would continue to sell.
He would continue to sell. The insurance and businessman who also was a politician and sold great ideas. Wonderful. So I think your father's quote on his plaque, the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame plaque, has extra meaning for us today. That which we do for ourselves dies with us. That which we do for others lives on. Truly, Gordon Bubolz's accomplishments live on today because they were part of the greater good, the public good, rather than for himself. Millie, is there anything else that you wanted to say today to share with everybody who's here about your father and his legacy?
Yeah, there's one thing that fits that quote you just said. He knew he was dying, and in the last few months, not even been weeks before he died, he planted hundreds of trees on some land he owned. It was consistent with that which we do for others lives on us. And of course, that was key to his life. He was always looking for the future.
Inspirational. So inspirational. Now, this is your time as we complete the interview, right? To go ahead and give a shout out to anybody that you would like to greet online today.
I would just like to thank Dave Horst in particular for he was just committed to making sure that my father ended up in the Hall of Fame. And he did a beautiful job of research and writing, and the sponsors and Conservation Hall of Fame. It is an honor. It's an honor, and his life will mean a lot more to a lot more people. And I'd also like to thank Northeast Wisconsin Land Trust for the 20 years of wonderful opportunity to carry on his work. And last but not least, my husband, and my brother, and Steve Smith for sharing their insights and finding photos and things for this. And to thank you and Sunshine for your work. It was wonderful.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. So Millie, we're going to say goodbye to you. This means that you can remove your finger from wherever you've had to hold it this whole time. And then we'll finish the ceremony because we're not over with yet.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
So thank you, Millie. Your insights into your family's life and your father's leadership have helped us get to know him better for sure. And I know I admire him even more than I did before. I'm sure many of our viewers today would say the same. So as we near the end of this ceremony today, I want you to know that we're turning on the chat feature now that has been enabled so that you can put your messages, your congratulatory messages, your memories, your thanks to the family of Gordon Bubolz in the chat, and we'll prepare a transcript for your notes, and then that way we'll send them to the family and nobody will miss anything that you shared during the ceremony, because things scroll by pretty quickly otherwise. And we'll leave the chat open for the next 5 minutes as we close the event. I should also tell you that a recording of this event will be available on our website by the end of the week, and it can be reviewed again and again as we share the legacy of Gordon Bubolz for decades to come. Please invite others who were not able to join us today to view this tribute online. And if you'd like to make a donation to the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame in honor of Gordon or any of our inductees, please visit our website, wchf.org, and click on the Join Donate tab. And your donations, just so you know, will help us share these accomplishments of Gordon as well as other inductees with an even wider audience as we continue our mission of celebrating, advancing, and sharing Wisconsin's conservation legacy through the stories of our conservation heroes. Again, we thank our sponsors of this event, our gold sponsors, Yeager Mellerop Family Charitable Trust, and Secura Insurance Companies, our silver sponsors, Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region, Tom Dawson, a donation in recognition of Wisconsin's youth conservation leaders, Gathering Waters, Northeast Wisconsin Land Trust, Jerry and Marilyn Knuth via Thrive and Choice, Wisconsin Society for Ornithology. Our bronze sponsors were Julia M. Boltz, Stephen Bourne, DeWitt Law Firm, Christine Euclid and Doug Steege, Joanne M. and Richard C. Hemp, Peter McKeever, Peter A. and Sharon A. Peshek, Sierra Club Wisconsin Chapter, Wildlife Society Wisconsin Chapter, and the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation. In-kind contributions have come from the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point. As you type in your thoughts to Gordon's family into the chat, I'll read a few excerpts of some congratulations messages that we've received at our office. For Millie Rugland and John Bubolz, adding my congratulations on Gordon's induction. What a gentle giant he was. And we have all enjoyed the spectacular results of his efforts. Job well done. Take care. And that's from Tom Sutter in Appleton. This one's from Stephanie Vrabeck, and she writes, Dear Millie, I was just thinking about your dad and what an incredible family you have. I often tell others about how he collected the money for High Cliff State Park dollar by dollar. A true conservation champion. The honor from Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame is so well deserved. Congratulations. We need to get together soon and celebrate in person. Yes, make sure you do that, Gordon Bubolz family. Here's another one from Kurt Detchen, and he's the president, CEO of the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region. Dear Millie and the Bubolz family, all of us at the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region are so pleased that Gordon will forever be recognized as a champion for conservation in Wisconsin. Our region of the state has long known and admired Gordon's work as a trailblazer for our natural world. Now the whole state will know about his tireless efforts and passion. Today, we build on what Gordon helped to put in place for us. It is our honor and joy to create more opportunities for more people to learn about our environment, engage as active stewards, and experience the great joy and wellness that our natural world provides us. Congratulations. And the last one I'll read here before we watch the video tribute a couple more times through is from Dave Horst. Millie and John, I want to offer my congratulations for the honor your family received with the induction of your father into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. I really enjoyed working with both of you to accomplish this well-deserved honor and learning more about your family history. I also want you to know that Jean and I have completed our visits to all of the Bubolz 10 with a hike to Hobbs Woods near Fond du Lac. It's a beautiful spot with deep ravines and a trickling trout stream. I hope to put together a pamphlet on the 10 to further increase awareness of Gordon's accomplishments and encourage more people to visit the nature centers, wildlife areas, and state park. Again, that was from Dave Horst. Wow, what a ceremony, what a man and what a family. We thank you so much for joining us today